When you think Detroit football, you think Lions, right? Of course. But what if I told you that before the Lions, the NFL's story in the Motor City was, well, it was a total mess, a chaotic saga of teams that just kind of appeared and then vanished into thin air. So today, we're going to dig up some of Detroit's lost football history.
Okay, let's just jump right in. Before the Lions became the team we know today, back in 1934, Detroit was basically a revolving door for NFL franchises. Seriously, we're talking about 4 different teams all through the 1920s, and every single one of them met a sudden, dramatic end. This is a story straight from the Wild West days of the NFL.
So, our story kicks off with the very first attempt to bring pro football to Detroit. And you're going to see a theme here, a pattern of, well, instability and a whole lot of money problems.
Yeah, this team's roots go way, way back to 1905. They started out as the Heralds, just an amateur club for some local university guys. Then they went semi-pro, and by 1920, they were actually good enough to be a charter member of the brand new American Professional Football Association, the APFA. You might know it better by the name it took on later, the NFL. But yeah, their spot at the big kids table, it didn't last long. It just completely fell apart. By 1921, they'd renamed themselves the Tigers, but after a bunch of losses, the money just dried up. Players weren't getting paid, so they started leaving. And the league's solution? Oh, it was brutal. They just folded the team, and whoever was left, they were just given to the Buffalo All-Americans. I mean, can you even imagine that happening today? Just pure, absolute chaos.
So, after a few years with no team, Detroit gets another shot in 1925. This time, the new team is the Detroit Panthers, and it was put together by a real football legend. This one looked like it was actually going to work.
The guy behind the Panthers was a man named Jimmy Conzelman. And you got to remember, back in the early days of the NFL, before these huge ownership groups, it wasn't weird for one guy to do everything. And Conzelman, he was the perfect example. He owned the team, he coached the team, and yep, he was the starting quarterback. He was literally all in on making this thing work.
And for a minute there, it worked like a charm. In their first season, 1925, the Panthers were an absolute powerhouse. They started the season 8-1, looking like they could win the whole thing. But then, just 1 year later, the magic was gone. They started the season 0-3, and the whole team just collapsed. I mean, look at this drop-off. It's staggering. In a single year, the Panthers went from being the 3rd best team in the entire league all the way down to 12th place. It was just a stunningly fast implosion for a team that looked so good. So after that complete disaster of a season in 1926, Jimmy Conzelman was done. He'd had enough. He folded the entire franchise, the one he built from nothing, packed his bags, and left to go coach another team. And just like that, Detroit's second shot at pro football was gone. All right, so Detroit is now 0 for 2. But this third attempt, this is the wildest story of them all. This time it's not about money problems. Nope. This one is about a star player, a rival owner, and a business move so crazy it's hard to believe it's even real. Okay, so in 1928, the Detroit Wolverines show up. This team was built around one of the league's biggest stars, a quarterback named Friedman. And hey, just like the Panthers, they were an instant success. They finished 3rd in the league with a great 7-1 record. It really looked like, okay, finally, Detroit has a team that's going to stick around. But their success actually created a brand new problem, a really big one. Turns out the owner of the New York Giants, Tim Mara, desperately wanted their star quarterback, Friedman. And Mara, he wasn't thinking about a simple trade. No. He had a much bigger and, frankly, a much more ruthless plan. This is where the story goes from weird to just completely wild. It really shows you how much of a free-for-all the early league was. So check this out. Here's how the heist goes down. Step 1. Murad decides he wants Friedman. Step 2. Instead of trying to trade for him, he just buys the entire Detroit Wolverines franchise. Step 3. Now that he owns them, he immediately deactivates the team. Poof. Gone. And step 4, he takes Friedman and all the other good players and just assigns them to his own team, the New York Giants. Just like that, a successful, winning team was wiped off the map, all to get one guy. So, after 3 failed teams in less than a decade, one fell apart, one just folded, and one was literally stolen, what was left? I mean, did any of this chaos leave a lasting mark on Detroit or the NFL? Well, the most immediate legacy was nothing. A big void. After the Wolverines just disappeared, the league pretty much gave up on Detroit for 6 whole years. It just goes to show you how fragile these teams were, and you can tell the NFL was getting a little tired of the city's bad luck. It wasn't until 1934, when a team from Portsmouth, Ohio moved and became the Lions, that Detroit finally got a team that would actually stick around. But here's the thing. Even though these teams were gone in a flash, they weren't without talent. Not at all. In fact, 2 of the main guys in this whole story, Jimmy Conzelman from the Panthers and Benny Friedman from the Wolverines, they were so good they both ended up in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Think about that. 2 Hall of Famers from teams that barely even existed. And maybe this is the most surprising legacy of them all. You know how Detroit Lions football on Thanksgiving is this huge tradition, right? It's iconic. Well, guess what? The Lions didn't start it. Every single one of these forgotten teams from the 1920s, the Heralds, the Panthers, and the Wolverines, they all played on Thanksgiving. They're the ones who actually laid the groundwork for one of the NFL's greatest traditions. So when you look at the big picture, before the Lions finally brought some stability, pro football in Detroit was just a wild, chaotic experiment. These forgotten teams are a great reminder that the polished, multi-billion-dollar league we all watch today was built on a foundation of teams that just flickered in and out of existence. And it really makes you wonder, right? If a whole team could just vanish for one player, what other crazy stories are buried in the NFL's early history?